The only one that's missing off there is Che Guevara.
Yeah. But in fact, there's some. I saw stuff in a museum in Cuba.
Yeah.
In the 1920s of the formation of the Cuban Communist Party.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in.
There's statuettes. There was one of the prop coded communists. Have you heard?
Oh, it's a terrific book.
Have you read it?
I'm starting it. Yeah, I'm starting it. It's a terrific. I had it reviewed. Andy O'Mahony was reviewing it with Elena Shane and that journalist out of the Times, Fintan O'Toole, who gave it a great.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Okay.
So it's just that's just to
That starts it.
To sync up just the two things.
Okay. We're here this morning to do an interview with Desmond Branigan, who has had, I think, an extraordinary life. I have known him from the early 70s, where I met him when I was a shop steward. He was the work study expert from the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, and he was at that time involved in a huge number of labour disputes all over Ireland, making the contribution and helping workers to deal with the technical ways of work study and all that went to it, producing many background reports which equipped hundreds of shop stewards and union officials to deal adequately with management problems. But before that, Desi had been an active trade unionist for many years. He was a seaman, he was a deep sea diver, he led the Marine Port and General Workers Union, he was a political activist, he was a television personality. I don't know what he wasn't. He was involved in everything that mattered in Ireland, particularly in the labour movement. So he's here to talk to us. And the first question I want to put to him is...
Okay. And I just want to know, what day is it, and where are we?
Oh yeah. We're in Desi's home in Ball's Bridge. He's moved a long way from the inner city where he was born, and this is the, what day is it?
It's it's Friday the 22nd of January.
This is Friday the 22nd of January 2010.
That's it. That's good. Thanks very
So
much.
my first question, Desi, is where were you born and what size was your family?
I was born in 1980 in North Great Georgia Street, and there was, apart from my father and mother, there were 6 children. Yeah. And there's only 2 were still alive. Yeah.
Okay. Were you the oldest?
No, by means. The eldest was a sister, and she died only last year. She was 94. She died last year. And I had 2 brothers, both of whom are dead, and they were older than me. I was the youngest of the boys, and there were 2 girls younger than me. 6 of us altogether.
Okay. Was that a working class area at that time?
Funny enough, no. It was an extraordinary set, North Great Georgia Street, and at the very top of the street was the college. What do you call it?
Yes. There's a secondary school college.
Belvedere College.
No, it's a full college.
Right.
That's the top of North Great Georgia Street. It's a Jesuit run.
Oh
college.
yes. I know what you're talking about, and I can't think of its name.
That was at the upper end of it.
Yeah.
And then halfway down the street, the houses were all still in middle class to upper class, but the lower end of it had developed into a slum.
Right.
And I was born in number 19.
Right.
No, not correct. I was born in the Rotunda, but we were living in the basement,
right,
which my family likes to say was the basement flat.
Right.
It was a cellar. You know?
Well, they were probably able to charge you extra if you called it a flat.
yeah.
And the Dublin at that time, when did you become aware of what the Dublin at that time was like? Where did you go to school?
Oh, this is a nice one. We won't bother with some of it because somebody ends up because of me. I was in one of these industrial schools.
All right.
And it was 9 years. Myself and my two brothers were put into an industrial school because the family could no longer pay us or look after us. Right. It was, as a senior police officer said to me recently, that it was Calgary. It said that not mentioned in the Ryan report at all, because I said, well, quite probably, because I certainly could not say that there was any misbehaviour by the Christian Brothers, etc., by way of sexual interference with the boys. Yeah. But they were pretty brutal in any other way. Yeah. They were tough. And I spent 9 years there.
And when you left that regime, Desi, did you start work?
Oh, I did. As I say, I was a messenger boy and things like that, and I wanted to get out of Ireland altogether because the things were absolutely appalling, and I spent a lot of time down in the Keys watching ships and occasionally on an old schooner helping on an old schooner. And ultimately I got the job as a deck boy on an English ship, and that started me off. That was 1937, I'd say, 1936, 1937. Yeah. I was only a Gosson then, you know, and I spent over 25 years at sea. Right.
And where would you go? Where did these liners go? Where did they go to as a deck boy? How far did you travel?
All parts of the world, but as a deck boy, Far East was the first stop that we had. We loaded coal in Cardiff, not in Cardiff, in Swansea, and that coal was for Alexandria in Egypt, and I was absolutely shocked at the way in which this cargo was discharged, with men carrying buckets on their back in and out, etc. And then we went on to Ethiopia, and the Italians had visited, attacked us and annexed us. I've even forgot. But I was in a place called Ras Hafun, and the natives there had numbers burned into that by the Italians. It was an appalling condition. But as I say, from the earliest days, well, I'd already had it rough myself, my own, but the way I saw people had been treated, both in Alexandria and later on the natives in Ethiopia, it was terrible. And we carried on from there with a cargo of salt for Japan. And I finished up in North Korea. And on the Yellow River, which is that's China, but at the time when the Japanese invaded, and as I say, that was my first taste of being involved in a war. Wow. Although they didn't attack us, but there were many, but certainly visually thousands and thousands of refugees, and they were trying to get onto our ship to get something to eat, and God knows what. But it was absolutely appalling, and the way, and that's always struck me, the way people were treated, you know. And then I started, then to understand that my father was a Dublin labourer, and a very, very solid Larkinite. Right. And my earliest recollection of sitting on his shoulders in Marlborough Street in Unity Hall.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Listening to Big Jim, talking there.
Do you remember the impression he made on you? Do you remember the impression Jim Larkin made as a speaker?
Oh, absolutely marvellous. It was apart from his body language was absolutely marvellous. But he was a very big man, and his sheer size and the power of his speech, he had a natural fluency, but always a very, very deep conviction in anything he said. And I remember the way in which people on the street listening to him, etc., applauded, and my father was amongst them. In fact, he was a Larkinite to the day he died, and even then we were very poor. And the only thing he left me was his union card and a card which said he had subscribed to the cost of a statue of Big Jim that was eventually put in O'Connor Street. You know?
Yeah. And which parts of your experiences drove you to trade unionism? When did you become involved in trade unionism?
Well, that would be more by way of compulsion than anything else. As a deck boy, I had to join the National Union of Seamen.
Yeah.
It wasn't at all, at that stage, conscious of what a trade union was even. Just simply, you got to join it, and that was that. But very, very gradually realised what it was all about. But I think I was paid 3p an hour overtime or something. Twopence something an hour overtime. There was an alleged limit to the hours that you worked, but it wasn't an alleged limit to anything, you know. It was pretty bad.
Would they work hard?
Oh, well, it's hard to say for a seaman. On the sailing ships you work very hard, but that was a motor ship that I was on.
Right.
You wouldn't say that work was hard, but it was continuous.
Yeah.
And I served my time for 7 years, and at the end of the 7 years we paid less than a labourer ashore. Right. And when you pointed that out, said, well, of course you've got to feed you when you're aboard the ship. Yeah. You say, starve me if they could, but you know. But as I say, the conditions, the hours of work, and the conditions, then the accommodation was absolutely appalling. There was what they call a forecastle. A forecastle means a forecastle, and it's a derivation of a term that was used for a sailing ship. But the crew were all housed up in the bow, I'd say. And we had to eat, sleep, drink, wash, so all in one little space. Although it was a very big ship, and there was plenty of room elsewhere, but it was deliberately kept. Finally, I tell you what happened. And when I was first a union official, I was responsible for the longest and biggest strike that we had since 1913 as far as the docks were concerned. And the issue was we wanted the wages and conditions of employment of Irish seamen to be decided in Ireland in conjunction with the employers. Where I was up to that time, we were always governed by the British Maritime Board, whatever they decided. Yes. And the strike was fought on the basis that we should, of course, have independence. Yeah. And as I say, the one thing we used, and I was particularly strong on this first clause in the booklet of the British Maritime Board, which decided our wages and conditions employed, was that there shall be established hereinafter a board known as the British Maritime Board, whose purpose is to maintain the maritime supremacy of the British Empire.
Yes. Well, I was reading your submission to the Labour Court on that, and interestingly, the Federated Union of Employers objected to, on behalf of the Irish stevedores, objected to you taking the case to the Labour Court. And it seemed to me that the principle was not only what you were looking for, but who would determine in future the conditions of seamen.
That's it.
And was a big case.
Well, we won the strike.
Yes.
And Aidan called me before John Charles McQuaid. We won.
How did that come about?
Well, I tell you what happened. They put immense pressure on me.
Who was they, does it?
Well, collectively, anybody in Ontario, from John Charles McQuaid to the Lord Mayor of Dublin, and other politicians.
Yes.
You see. And as McQuaid said, well, you know, your people are suffering, and I'm sure if I could understand what's involved, I may be able to help in this situation. And he says, well, give me a general idea of what it is it's about. I said, I do better than that. I have it here, twice. He said, oh, that's marvellous. He said, this is it. And he looked at it, my original claim in its entirety. The bastard, he froze in his bloody head. I said, that's it.
That's right.
And one other thing,
he didn't assist you any further.
Huh?
He didn't assist you any further.
He said, I may be able to draw somebody's attention to it. All he had to lift his finger and they'll all come running to him, you know. And I don't want this recorded for reasons, again, that upset some people. Members of my executive went to what was called a palace.
Yes.
The Archbishop's palace in those days.
Yeah.
And each one was kissing his ring, and I said to him, hello.
All of a sudden, you become the General Secretary. Were you an active member of the union before you were the General Secretary?
Yes. Well,
how did that come about?
Well, we didn't have, by any means, we didn't have any system of shop stewards or anything like that aboard ship.
Yeah.
But the Irish Seamen and Port Workers Union was founded in 1935, I think, and 2 years later I joined it.
Yeah.
And it's very militant.
Yeah.
Later the Dockers joined it, but that's by the by. And
you changed the name to be able to take in the Dockers, I think.
Oh yeah, well then it became, well, what happened then was there were so many different organisations, so many different trades and people.
Yeah.
So we finally established it as the Marine, Port and General Workers,
yeah.
which are
Give you a bigger appeal.
but we got one of John Charles's and the Jesuits planted there.
Yeah.
And they undermined me completely, and that's another story.
Was that political, Desi? Their undermining of you?
Oh,
was it simply? Was it just that you were prepared to take militant action to look after workers, or did they know about your political views? Had they objections to your political views?
No. As a matter of fact, I deliberately did two things. I never joined the Communist Party. And I didn't get involved politically at all, for the simple reason was that if there's the slightest hint that was there, you wouldn't have got a job in the unions. You wouldn't have been able to do anything.
So you didn't do it. Right.
I never used politics at all.
Yeah.
You know, it's always strictly on the basis of the facts of any case that I was involved in. You know.
But they still regarded you as on the left, notwithstanding you being careful.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you how some of that happened. In one of my one of the English ships I was on, there was a Dun Laoghaire man, a member of the crew, and by that time I had let it be known just exactly what I thought of the scheme of things, kind of thing, you know. And although I never joined the Communist Party, I understood their objectives and one thing or that, and was sympathetic to that, and would talk about it as much as I could. And this fellow from Dun Laoghaire, when we got back to Dublin, he spread the word. That's the nearest that he ever got to putting a label on me, you know. But I never denied it, and I never admitted it. It was none of their pecking business anyway.
And you got the right of the Irish conditions of seamen. You established that they would be determined in Ireland.
Oh yeah.
That was a big. That was a big move away. That was a big achievement at the time.
I said everybody put pressure on me, including Sean Lemass, who I got on very well with. In general, I got on very well with, you know. And he sent for me, and he said, "What do you want?" I said, "What do you mean, what do I want?" Well, it's just a question of wages. Just no. I said, "It is exactly what we said, that we want an organisation set up that would cater for the unions and the employers in the same way as is done by the British Maritime Board." He said, he said, "About money?" I said, "No, it's not about money." Well, he said, maybe you'd bring it around to that. And what he was after, and he wasn't being smart, what he was after was this, that if we were to try and strike a level of wages above the English side, the whole mighty British Navy, merchant navy, which was the largest in the world at that time, it would have spread like wildfire. So therefore he was shrewd enough to realise that any attempt by us to establish a higher level of wages for Irish seamen would have that. But I did try, before the Labour Court too, to show that at that stage the British seamen had the advantage of a welfare system that had so therefore they had a lot of
social advantages.
Social welfare they got for. Now we didn't have, and therefore the wages were, we should have had. But as I say, although I went to a lot of trouble in researching the whole question, but it was the chairman of the Labour Court was a fellow called Watershed, who was from the ILO, retired from the ILO, and it just ignored it, as they always would. I've got it the last couple of years, this on Planala. They just ignore what doesn't suit them. That's all there is to it, you know. They don't necessarily contradict you, just ignore you. That's all, you know.
You attacked the Labour Court when you were General Secretary on one occasion. You attacked the Labour Court on General that's unusual for a General Secretary to attack the referee. But you did. I was reading about you in the press in the 50s. You attacked the Labour Court for some of their decisions. It's very unusual for trade union officials to do that.
Well, as I say, it was quite obvious to me that they were absolutely biased. No question of it whatsoever. And it's the same as the present board to all, which is not in the same business, but it's a state board, etc. And their job is to make sure to hold the status quo. Don't let anybody break clear, you know. At one stage I was representing the the Dublin pilots. And what am I talking about? The national pilots. I resigned from the Marine Port. That's a separate reason altogether for that. And I resigned from and I was immediately approached by the officers' union, the pilots and marine officers, to know if I would act for them. And I was acting for them. and brought a very substantial case. It's all buried somewhere in my papers through the Labour Court, and they just completely just ignored it. That's all. You know, there's no way.
Yeah. What happened? What happened between you and the Marine Port executive? How did you end up not being the general secretary?
Yeah. Well, as I say, I'm not going to give names.
Okay, that's fine. Just a general picture.
Well, so say that fellow in Dun Laoghaire who has spilled the beans as far as but of course they could never prove it. Just he wasn't known to anybody, but the word spread and God knows what. So there was always attempts to undermine me as General Secretary, and there was at least 2 people on the executive who were directly influenced by and answered through John Charles McQuaid and the Jesuits. And the Jesuits came to me once and said, one Jesuit, he said, I want to speak to you as you're one of the leading trade union officials, etc. So what? Well, it's the Jesuits, and this Milltown, they set up, but they changed it from the Irish something or another. They changed it.
It was first set up as the Catholic Workers' College, and then it became the College of Industrial Relations.
Yeah. So he said, we want to interview all the leadership, and what we're trying to do is to assist the workers in being able to participate in their union's work. And I listened to him for a long time. He said, what do you say? There's only one thing that puzzles me. How do you know anything about how a trade union operates? I said, you belong in an entirely different world. I don't think you have the competence. You have the interest, but for not the right reasons, kind of thing. We finished up. I was the only union official, including the late Jim Narkin, who was never invited to that Irish Workers, whatever we call it. I was the only one who was never asked there. Yes. But as I say, when they sent their first Jesuit through me, I said, we're with a flea in his ear, kind of thing.
But what happened what was the battle like in the union?
Oh, no, it never emerged as such. It's just that we had an old caretaker, I think. He was a dirty old bastard. He had young boys and women and so forth in and out of the union hall after hours and so forth. And I wanted to get rid of them altogether. And the main representative of the church on the executive, he made a big issue of it, that was unfairly treating this man, and attributed all sorts of remarks to me, which I never made in point of fact. But it was quite obvious that I was not going to be able to function in the way I wanted to function. These people were too influential. 2 of them was on the executive, and finally we had an annual general meeting, and the president and officials were elected at that annually kind of thing. And that it came to an annual general meeting when I let it be known that I had to retire. I'm not going forward again. I find it very difficult to operate. But if it is a thing that I will carry on, there's no other pressure from the hall, I'll carry on condition that if I find it necessary to resign, there will be a general meeting called, at which I can explain the reasons why. And some months later, I did resign. That general meeting was never called. The plants from the church were there, and God knows what. They were never there. But very shortly afterwards, I became the General Secretary of the Pilots and Marine Officers. And marine pilots and ship's captains and God knows what, you know.
Yeah.
And it's very, very interesting.
How long did you stay there? How long did you work for them?
Not very long. Inevitably, I led them into a major strike.
Yes. Was that a strike in Carlingford? Was that a strike in Carlingford?
Look, that was a separate issue altogether. That had nothing to do with the pilots. Yeah, that was the crew of a tug that was operating in Carlingford, and maintaining the light buoys and got in the lock.
Yeah.
And they were being paid ridiculous wages, even by comparison with the seamen's wages.
Yeah.
And I was looking for the seamen's wages for them, what they were doing. But I was very, very badly let down on that one.
Yeah.
But it was one of the things where I was, as a matter of fact, what happened was, we blacked one of the B&I ships, which were going to Newry. The B&I took us to court and lost it. We lost it there. And it's going to cost the union an awful lot of money, etc. And I was very, very roundly condemned for that. That I had got the union into serious trouble. It was fully exploited, kind of thing. That was one thing. The other thing was, it was the beginning of what is now a great international body, the usage of containers for carrying cargo. I have a master's degree from St Andrews University from my analysis of that. But it was the only time that the two groups of dock workers, cross-channel men who worked with the B&I and cross-channel companies, and the deep sea men, which handled boarding carriage, the two of them came together in Liberty Hall, and all the unions, and your fellow Lynch.
Yes, Gilbert Lynch.
And what I did was I recommended to the body that they should realise that this system was already in operation, and it was going to be very difficult if they refused to handle goods out of containers in Dublin. There are other ports around the country, and that was part of the union end of it, the Irish transport as it used to be. And that is exactly what happened.
Yes.
The general meeting condemned me. Like Gilbert Lynch and so forth attacked me for using the fact that I was recommending that they should negotiate when they can, because I could see the implications.
You thought that containerisation was inevitable.
But that too was used very strongly. But by that stage, you see, and on that issue, it became clear to the general body of dockers and seamen from both ends of the port and so forth. They are very clear to them that every other union was to disagree with me, so therefore I was wrong. You know, but all that pressure built up to get me. But it was mainly orchestrated by the same bloody group all the time. You know?
Yes. So you were looking after the senior officials in the sea area. How long did you stay there with them?
Oh, only about 3 years, because I did a very comprehensive analysis of the wages of the pilots, the number of ships that they handled, and there were all sorts of criteria by which I measured it, by comparison with ports in England, etc., and showed that these fellows had handled twice as many ships for lesser money. And I made a very, very strong case. It's all on the record anyway. I made a very strong case for it. But unfortunately, while I had enough influence on the Dublin pilots the pilots around the country, they never even heard of me. I mean,
Yes.
they weren't seamen kind of thing.
I know, yeah.
And they all collectively decided that they weren't going to support her, and the whole thing collapsed. So I was in trouble again.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
Right.
I was only about 3 years in that organisation
Yes.
when the whole thing collapsed. You know?
Yeah. And this was about when? What year was that about?
Oh Jesus! Now you've asked me a question.
No, because the next period of your life you become involved as a work study expert in the ICTU.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Did that come about after that? After you retired?
I'll tell you how it came about. After I left the Marine Port, I went into the pilots and Marine officers, and so I tried. That organisation was destroyed as well.
Yeah.
Same elements at work kind of thing. See?
Yeah.
And I went and started to work on the docks as a docker.
Mm.
You know,
Were you in the B&I?
oh no, not the B&I.
Right.
Well, I was sailing in the as a seaman, but as a docker, down the deep sea end of it. The B&I were across channel, and they were very conservative. I was the old Irish transport. Bill O'Brien had got their influence still there.
Was that difficult, Desi, on a personal level? Was that difficult? You had been a general secretary of 2 unions, and then you found yourself working as a working docker again.
That's right.
Was that difficult?
No. I mean, as a docker, I was doing what I very largely had to do at sea at any rate, kind of thing. No. I understood that. Even from a boy, I used to go aboard ships to try and give a hand at things, kind of thing. Yeah. No. That didn't worry me at all.
Yeah.
But when I went back down to the docks, see, it's all finished now.
But other people might say that they wouldn't cut across you. Other people might say yes. They might say yes, you could do the work, but there was a loss of status. These days, trade union officials are regarded as a job, as a status. So you lost your status. You were working as a docker.
That's right.
You know, how can a workers' leader work as a docker? You seem to find this is perfectly ordinary.
As I say, the stevedores, day by day, when you were picked for do a job on a particular ship, usually 2 or 3 days work. After that, you were unemployed again, kind of thing. You see. It was a very casual kind of job. Yeah. But the stevedores were got at, and they used to leave me standing there. I was never picked until some of the very decent elements in which the doctors said they'd have to support me, see.
Yeah.
And they put it very bluntly: if he doesn't fucking work, nobody else is going to work. Simple as that. No subtlety about it whatsoever, kind of thing, you know. And that prevailed.
Right.
And I was working on the docks, etc. And Jim Larkin was very concerned about me, and.
This is young Jim Larkin.
Yeah.
Young Jim.
Well, I knew old Jim too.
Yeah.
Young Jim. And he prevailed on the Congress when there were the productivity drive was on. That's a long, complicated question.
Yeah.
There was 2 things happened. And the man said to me once that industry, and he was talking about the big employers in those days, ESB and all the big five. Industry has a function, a social function as well. And therefore we employ as many people as we possibly can. But this is where I ran into, headlong into quite a serious situation. But he said, we can hope to control and correct the cost of the extra work by increasing the tariff on any incoming goods, so that no matter anything that was in demand, kind of thing, was to put a high tariff on it, so the importers could never make it. But it meant, of course, that our production was very highly costly, and that is the situation that developed when they decided, Congress of Trade Union, that to set up a group, and I headed that group, and I have a qualification in that. It's a question of understanding the whole system of wage structures and God knows what.
But what you're saying essentially, Desi, was that Sean Lemass and Congress were aware that we were going to move towards a freer trade situation, and they wanted to tackle this through productivity.
That's right.
And that's why the productivity department was
That's right.
You were involved in that productivity department from day one.
Right from the very beginning.
Right. Where did you get the qualification to
I had to attend a very comprehensive course in Rathmines. In Rathmines. And I got the qualification, MIII, member of the Institute of Industrial Engineers, which was pure bullshit. It's a fuck all to do with engineering. But instead of calling themselves work-study officers, the Americans call themselves engineers, so we're going to be marine. And even at that, I objected.
Of course, though it wasn't simply a drive towards productivity, because it ended up in many ways, and this is how I first met you. You were called in to resolve disputes, which were partly resolved through the use of productivity. So you were involved in a lot of disputes. You were involved in disputes certainly in the car industry, and I remember you done a report when the country almost stopped because of the tanker drivers. You were involved in that report to solve that dispute.
That's right. But I did. It's hard to believe now, and unfortunately, all the records of Congress were destroyed when they shifted from one place to another. I was involved in 900 cases. When I say I was the head of the advisory service, and I had two other qualified people, etc. But I was involved.
John Rockwell and Tom McGrath, or Stephen McCarthy.
But it's got to show that union officials, and particularly the Irish transport, who were very, very difficult, and I was objected to anybody having any say except themselves, kind of thing, but their members insisted that new productivity schemes, etc., will be examined, and I always put it to the workers quite simply: either you adapt or you die. It's as simple as that. Our costings, our industrial costings, are so high that we cannot possibly come in. So by that time, we had joined the United Kingdom Free Trade Agreement.
The Anglo-World Free Trade Agreement.
For entry into the EU.
Of course,
But that gave the EU and the British the right of entry into. Otherwise, the tariff no longer was going to protect. They had to get better terms. And as I say, there was no question whatsoever. But we were seriously, which was a difficult thing to deal with, we were seriously overmanned. And as I say, that was part of our state policy.
Yes, it was the limit.
And as I say, I had to, of a necessity, the facts were quite simple. They had to adjust and adapt and God. And as I say, there are two things I always told people. You'll get what you've got the strength to take, and you'll keep what you've got the ability to defend. That's fundamental thing. But on the other hand, you can be very unwise in looking for something, or not looking for something, as the case may be, that just wouldn't be available. So therefore I had to make recommendations again and again and again, that closed shop agreements and all that. All had to go.
Yeah.
And it was serious over money. But again, I ran into trouble with with several of the unions. They say when I make recommendations, you say, "Oh well, our members wouldn't like. Could you not say something?" No, I will not say any such thing. My job is to analyse the proposal that's before you and make recommendations that I think are essential. But I can only make recommendations. What you do with my recommendations is your business. But don't ask me, as an advisor, to say what you want.
Sometimes I think union officials, Desi, sometimes I think union officials thought that you should, and certainly employers thought, that you should make proposals which resolve disputes rather than dealt with the facts.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there was a lot of argument about that.
Oh, absolutely. But what the hell? I mean, my job was to conduct analysis, and so, and they asked me, what's this productivity? And I tell them, you know, that there are two means by which productivity is measured. One is the ratio between income and expenditure of a firm.
Yeah.
And if they get out of balance, it's a productivity. And the other is the elimination of waste in all its forms, whether it's leaving a light or a machine running or wasters. And there are practices where a tradesman wouldn't lift, you have to send for a labourer to do this.
Yes.
A simple job like changing a light bulb, or you have to get an electrician to do that type of thing, which is perfectly understandable by way of defending their employment and getting the best possible care as well. But it's no good in a world of industrial competition.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And I had to recognise that.
Yeah.
As I say, even with the container traffic.
Yeah.
I
it was the same
argument.
argument.
And as I say, but the union supposedly, and the membership of the union got to understand. I was advocating I was in line for a big job. I was absolute bloody nonsense. So,
any of those disputes, what would you say was the biggest dispute you dealt with?
that was unquestionably having set up an Irish Maritime Board.
Right.
Which really pays. That was the biggest.
The biggest one. Yeah.
And that, as I say, it's.
But in the work study area.
Oh, the work study area.
What was the biggest, the most important kind of area of recommendations that you made?
I really can't answer that question.
Would it not have been would it not have been the tanker drivers dispute, which actually stopped the country?
Yeah, no.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying you didn't stop the country, but you were asked to report after the country had come to a standstill.
The biggest, if there was any dispute, the reason why I can't answer that question.
Right, okay.
If there was any dispute which arose as a result of my recommendations, if you like, that influence, it was their unions that took this action.
Yes.
I wasn't any longer in a position where I could.
No, I understand that. I understand that. No, I'm saying in which you were brought into, which was the most important, the biggest one you were brought into. You dealt with over 900. So, I mean.
Well, say it was Board of Mona. Where there was changes coming in there, VAT changes, etc. ESB, Aer Lingus.
Yeah.
I was called in to Aer Lingus. This is a funny thing. When they first started to use computers, you know, it sounds silly nowadays, but they brought in and as a result of bringing in computers, there's unemployment and people are laid off and God knows what. And on one occasion, I don't know what the hell, it was a big insurance group I was involved with, and they sent to England to get what the hell they call them. a consultant, if you like,
Yes.
expert in the field. And the office was in Grafton Street. It's an Irish branch of a big industrial, a big insurance company. And this fellow came. I was sorry for the poor booker. You think he had stepped off the train in London to go to Surbiton with a hard hat on and
Sure, yeah.
And I'm sure he expected to find people hiding behind bushes and go, we're all wild men over there. Kind of thing. And he said, well, I understand this is with the copper covered. I understand you have a trade union chappie. He said, and the fellow betrayed on the poor poker. I'll help him any way I possibly can. Is there any different? Well, that's very interesting, because I don't do trade union chappie. As a matter of fact, there are things your advice on. And I started with the greatest lot of fucking bullshit I ever said, because I learned all the catchwords and the phrases and when I had the computer thing in Aer Lingus.
Yes.
And as the poet says, words of learned length and thundering sound, amazing and I said to him, you know, that's the way it is. And he kept looking at me. You know? So she said to withdraw. And the manager told me after. He said, well, all sorts of chappy, isn't he? And the other, of all things, trolley dolls, which were manufactured in Connemara. And fellows who should have been hauling lobster pots and so forth and making trolley dolls, etc. And they got on to the Congress union and said that these people are introducing changes and could you send a man down? And there seems to be a language difficulty. So I went down anyway, as I normally would, and asked for the shop steward. And this great big fella came in. Jesus, that's an awful fucker, that. This is they brought in from London, you know. So I said, well, I'll have to meet him anyway. But the language difficulty was the Connemara man would only speak Irish.
Oh, that's right.
And the poor bugger, he couldn't, and it was arranged but the foreman would translate the Irish into English, and then so when I was introduced to him, and he said, "How do you do? How do we do what?" He said, "Well, I beg your pardon." I said, "You asked me how do I do? How do I do what?" When I learned English, it had to be a complete sentence, but just the poor bugger, he was gone within a couple of days, you see. I heard, I was in the canteen, and the group were talking amongst themselves. I was Stuart from Sassenach, how do you do? I was Stuart from Fradell, how do I do what?
So they understood you. They understood
oh yeah. But anyway, there were some very interesting things happened.
Yeah.
But I was involved in everything from Irish lights and the lighthouses. And I was involved in everything.
Yeah.
Any aspect of Irish industry or employment, not necessarily the industry, of employment, I was involved, because Congress being a national body,
sure,
and there's 100 unions and so forth, and they all got to know. But one thing, and you will be one of these people too, it got to the stage where unions were threatening the employers that if they didn't go, that I'd be called in.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct.
By at that time, the national reputation would be very difficult to deal with.
Yes, yes.
However, that's it anyway.
Yes,
But never, ever compromise on whatever I consider to be the correct thing to do. Even if it meant recommending to the workers what they didn't want to do, it was essential that they would.
In the long term.
I say, you're not doing them any favour when you walk them into all sorts of trouble, you know.
That's right.
There's inevitably there's either you adapt or you die.
Yeah.
It's quite simple.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
on a couple of occasions, fellas, well, I outlined that to a general meeting, or God, there's so many of these meetings. You inevitably get fellas who say, "That buckler there, he's an employer's man, that's good thing." I say, all right, you asked me for advice, I gave you the advice. You want to reject it or accept it, it's entirely up to you. Good morning, I'm going back to school. I don't intend to change anything that I said because it's based on facts. It's not my opinion, that's what the facts are.
I remember you on a very famous occasion.
I'm sorry there, Mick. I need to change
Okay,
tape, so maybe this is a good time now.
I remember you on a very famous occasion in the canteen in Fiat, and you were giving a report, which, let's say, gave us about 80% of what we wanted, but we were annoyed about the 20% that you forgot to give us, or didn't think we were entitled to, whatever it was. So you were brought into the canteen and an accusation was made against you. And a fella said to you, I never forgot this, you said every man has his price, in some way or something. And he said, what's your price? And you said to him, the same as Lenin's, socialism. And the whole place went up. Absolutely. And I also remember during the Common Market, you persuaded Rory Roberts to come up to Fiat and to address a workforce meeting. And he did. And it was a good meeting. But he said to me afterwards, I have never addressed a meeting like this in the last 20 years. It's very good to get out of Congress. Roberts did. But you were an instrumental in the problem. But he actually met loads of shop floor workers. And I often thought that was it.
He hadn't no notion really. He came from a wrong background.
I know that. No, I understand that. But he actually enjoyed it, Desi. He actually, and I think it was good for him if he had done more of it, to tell you the truth.